same results. Ordering is fast and easy with your pills delivered to your door in a non-marked package. 800-223-0992. 800-223-0992. 800-223-0992. That's 800-223-0992.
Welcome into Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Today is Thursday, November 21st, and I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is just my name, at Chelsa Messinger. If you want to give me a shout, drop me a line, something nice, something respectful, or something that'll make me laugh. I would love it. We've got a busy show today with a wide array of topics, starting with Premier League soccer with Nick Geber, who always gives us some great picks, some great value picks if you want to make a little dosh, as he likes to say, followed by some NFL, some NBA, and a little college basketball sprinkled in our second segment. And finally, it's our college football rapid fire segment where we go down the line with a bunch of college football games from the upcoming weekend, and we give you all of our picks from our top handicappers, and hopefully we can make you guys some money. On tonight's docket for sports betting, we've got Thursday night football, Colts Texans. The Texans favored in that one, -3.5. The total is 45.5. Colts running back Marlon Mack will not play. He has a broken hand. If that affects your bets at all, look into it. It's a big matchup for the AFC South as far as that division goes. I know as a Titans fan, I'll be watching college football. We've got NC State and Georgia Tech. And if you didn't know, I do call myself an NC State alum. I graduated from there, and it's been a tough season for us Wolfpackers. Playing Georgia Tech tonight, it depends on where you get this line. I have Georgia Tech favored in this one by 2. But I know some people have NC State -1. 46.5 is the total in that one. NC State, 4-game losing streak. Georgia Tech has lost 3 in a row, including that 45-0 loss to Virginia Tech. But NC State has had so many injuries that it's basically like a high school team playing on the defense, and it's hard to watch. We've got a great show. Stay tuned after the break. We're kicking things off, I should say, with Premier League soccer after the break on Picks and Parlays.
Available right now. That's michaeljfox.org/PD360. Visit today.
Hey, so are you the type of guy that wants to look put together, but doesn't want to spend hours at the mall finding new clothes? So you can look great at the office, on the road, or even just on the weekend with friends and family? I hear you. This is why there's Stitch Fix, your personal styling service that delivers hand-picked clothes right to you. Stitch Fix is simple. Sign up in just a few minutes. Tell them about the brands that work for you, and even let them know what types of styles you prefer. Stitch Fix is convenient. You get great clothes delivered right to you, so you can try new styles on in the comfort of your own home, and make a decision without any pressure. And Stitch Fix is on your terms, and priced to match your budget. There's no subscription required ever. Keep what you want, and send back anything you don't. So, isn't it time you got it all together? Get started today at StitchFix.com. Stitch Fix, personal styling for men, women, and kids. Stitch Fix, personal styling for everybody.
At 28, I had struggled with opiate and meth addiction for 12 years. I did and said things that the sober me never would have done. One day I realized I was not invincible. I was not exempt. And that's when a friend told me about Elite I needed to get sober, and all it took was the one phone call.
Elite Rehab can help you start to break your addiction problem and get sober in as little as 7 days. And we'll work with your insurance provider to help cover the costs. Plus, we have travel assistance programs to get you here by plane or train. Make this free call right now to learn more. 800-403-5912. 800-403-5912. 800-403-5912. That's 800-403-5912.
Want to stay in touch with your favorite Sports Byline USA network hosts? Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at Sports Byline USA. You can also see the latest news in the world of sports, learn about upcoming contests and giveaways, plus catch up on guest info so you never miss a moment with the biggest names in every sport: football, basketball, baseball, MMA, and more. No matter where you are in the U.S. or around the world, you can stay connected to the host and fans who love what you love. So check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Sports Byline USA.
Welcome back to Picks and Parlays, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're just listening, we're also on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsea Messenger. It's my handle, it's my name. Drop me a line if you feel so inclined. Right now, we're jumping into some Premier League soccer with Nick Geber, who always some great stuff for us, including some great value picks. I don't put my blind faith in a lot of people when it comes to betting, but Nick is one of those people. I'm not nearly as knowledgeable on soccer, but Nick's picks are always on the mark. And with that intro, we welcome in Nick Geber. Nick, how you doing over there?
Well, very well, Chelsea. And I have to say, all the better because the Premier League is back this weekend after what has been another of these interminable international breaks. We had Euro 2020 qualifying for all the teams in Europe. And then here in the United States, the U.S. team played their Nations League games against football powerhouses such by the likes of Cuba and Canada. Just dire stuff, Chelsea. Why they keep interrupting my beloved Premier League, I just don't understand it.
Well, maybe you're getting too hot with your picks. They had to slow you down.
It
Throw
could,
some water on you.
It could be, and I know my many Nigerian friends on Twitter were looking for me to give them some Euro 2020 picks, but I really don't like to bet too much on the qualifying rounds of these international tournaments. I prefer to bet. I'll be betting on Euro 2020, of course, but on these qualifying rounds, not so much. But we have some really exciting matches coming up in the Premier League, Chelsea.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those. Let's start off with Aston Villa, Newcastle. Aston Villa is plus 110 in this one. Newcastle plus 240, and the draw is plus 240. Any of these plays striking you as a good investment?
Yeah, Chelsea. Well, this is the Monday match, and this is at Villa Park, so it's a home game for Aston Villa, obviously, and they've maybe been a little deceptive since coming up to the Premier League this season. Other than a string of 3 games against Burnley, Norwich, and Brighton, which they won, they've really been consistently, quite frankly, pretty bad, despite spending an awful lot of money in the off-season as they tooled themselves up for the Premier League season. They're on a 3-game losing streak currently, although those losses did come to Man City, Liverpool, and Wolves. No shame in at least the City and Liverpool losses. Newcastle, on the other hand, they've turned it around after an early kind of rocky start, quite frankly. Steve Bruce, the manager, he's really stabilized this team. They're now more than 6 points clear of the relegation zone, which I know was causing, being in the relegation zone was causing Newcastle fans a lot of grief. But they're out. They're 3-1-1 in the last 5. I like this Newcastle team a fair amount. I like Steve Bruce. I think he's done a good job managing them. You know, I think Dean Smith at Villa, he's got his hands full trying to get that team believing they can win anything. I like the draw on this one, Chelsea, quite frankly. Plus 240. I think this is a draw. I think Newcastle go to Villa Park and get the draw. A point for each of them, and I think at plus 240 could be quite a few dollars for you.
Right, always a good value pick. Let's move on to West Ham and Tottenham. This is an interesting one because the lines have moved considerably because of a manager change. So let's talk about that for a second. West Ham opened at plus 250. They're now plus 333. The draw is plus 319. And Tottenham opened as plus 105. Now they're minus 128. So just explain to us just how much that new manager really affects these teams.
I'm going to give you 3 words, Chelsea. The Special One. That is the name that he gave himself. We're talking about Jose Mourinho, of course, the new manager of Tottenham Hotspur. Look, woke up 2 days ago to the not so unsurprising news that Mauricio Pochettino had been fired from Tottenham. This after getting them within a whisker of winning the Premier League. That was the year that Leicester City won it, by the way, at the 5,000 to 1 underdog. You might remember that. And of course, getting them to the final last year, just 9 months ago, 8 months ago, the final of the Champions League. Daniel Levy fires Mauricio Pochettino, and quite frankly, long overdue. Despite making it to the final of the Champions League last season, this team has been absolutely horrible. They've won 4 games in the last 23 in the Premier League. That is all 12 games from this season, and going back, 13 games, 11 games last season. 4 games they've won in the Premier League. Time for a change. They bring in currently the winningest manager in soccer. The guy that's got the most wins is currently active. This man, Jose Mourinho, he's a wonderful manager. He plays a dire, depressing form of football. He gets results, though. 8 league titles in 4 countries. Hear me on that. He has won league titles in Portugal, in Italy, in Spain, and in England. 8 domestic cups. He's won 2 Champions League titles and 2 UEFA Cups or Europa Leagues. It's changed. Even his dire worst year he had, which was 2016-2017 at Man United, which actually saw him get sacked, he still managed to win the Europa League. So this guy is a serial winner. He's just what the fans are looking for. As you mentioned, Spurs opened at plus 105. They've now moved to minus 128 favourites. Again, they are visiting West Ham United at the London Stadium. Mourinho, if you're interested, his first match in charge of new teams, he's 3-3-1. And so, he's almost perfect, really, in terms of staying away from the losses. West Ham, they haven't won a game since their 2-0 victory at home against United. Since then, they're 0-4-2. Look, West Ham are at home. Lots of pressure to get a result. Mourinho comes in. There's always a new managerial bounce for the club. But, I think asking Tottenham to go to London, they are in London, by the way. They are a London club, so this is a derby. But asking them to go to the London Stadium and get a win. I like the draw on this one, Chelsea. And it's now shifted from plus 260 to plus 319. I like this one for a draw. You've got 2 great managers, Manuel Pellegrini and Jose Mourinho. It's a clash of the managerial titans. And I say it's a draw at plus 319.
Right. I think you answered my one question, which would be Mourinho, obviously his resume speaks for itself, but when you're new to a team, sometimes there's an adjustment period. So you said he's 3-3-1. Is that what you said with his first game?
First game's in charge, yeah, 3-3-1. 3 wins, three draws, 1 loss.
Gotcha. All right. So let's move on to Manchester City and Chelsea. Chelsea are the big underdogs in this one. They're plus 535. The draw is plus 383, and Manchester City is minus 223. And they are the defending Premier League champions, so that number is warranted. Who do you like in this one?
Well, sometimes, Chelsea, I think that the media and punters and bookmakers live in the past constantly, and of course that is always part of what they do. Chelsea right now are actually 1 spot above Manchester City in the table. You heard me, they are 1 spot above Man City in the table. They are flying high. They've only lost 2 games so far, and one of those games was to Liverpool. And as I mentioned, everybody's lost to Liverpool, except for Man United. They got the draw. City, they're a bit of a surprise this season. They are the repeating champions of the Premier League, but they already have 3 losses and a draw. Look, they lost 4 and they drew 3 all season last year. We're 12 games in. They've already lost 2 and they've already have 3 losses and a draw. Look, there's something going on at Man City. They're getting a bit older. They're getting a bit longer in the tooth. I think Pep Guardiola, the manager, I think he's coming to the end of his tenure there. And I also think this is a team that's getting ready for a refresh. I think this is the time. They're not going to win the title this year. And quite honestly, Frank Lampard has this young Chelsea squad, invigorated, and they're just too young to know when they should lose. And I think there's a lot to say about that. I like the massive upset here, Chelsea. Look, this line for Chelsea, it opened at plus 750. They're now down to plus 534. This is at the Etihad in Manchester. This would be the upset of the season, but something tells me, Chelsea, and it's not the money I paid the referee, trust me. Something tells me that this is going to be a Chelsea upset, plus 534. I'm going to take a small punt on this one, little bit of dosh.
Hot take. And look at you being nice to Frank Lampard.
Yeah, good old fat Frank, right?
You always call it, exactly. There it is. Right.
Can't help myself.
Oh, man. Always good stuff from Nick Geber and the soccer picks there. We're back after the break on Picks and Parlays with a little basketball and some NFL. Stick with us after the break on Picks and Parlays.
If you need fast cash for any reason, go to moneynow100.com. Good, bad, or no credit at all. Go to moneynow100.com. You could get up to $5,000 as soon as the next business day. Go to moneynow100.com on your phone, tablet, or computer. Type in the address bar moneynow100.com. That's moneynow100.com.
Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All of your favorite social media platforms. We're there for you. We're there for your comments, your feedback. your plays if you think you're better than us. I'm your host, Chelsea Messinger. And today is Thursday, and Thursday has been really good to our next guest. Chip Chirimbes is 8-2 on Thursday Night Football. Chip, what's your secret?
Well,
spell it out for us.
I think it's doing a lot of homework and making sure to stay on top of it. You know, Chelsea, I've been doing this a long time, longer than most in this industry, and really got a real great feel for the Thursday night game so far. Last week we had Cleveland. We've hit 4 in a row, and tonight's guaranteed winner between who's playing tonight anyway? Tonight's guaranteed winner between Houston and Indianapolis.
Guaranteed winner.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed winner between Houston and Indianapolis. It's up. It's only $39. Or you can get involved for the entire month and get every game, every day, in every sport. And that's probably the best bargain in all the sports right now. But the first NFL game, Chelsea, we're going to talk about is the Sunday night game, which is another standalone game. Last Sunday, we did have the bailout winner with the Rams over the Chicago Bears after having a very disappointing game against Houston against Baltimore. But Green Bay enters this game at San Francisco, a 3-point dog, 8-2 on the season, 7-3 against the number. You know, Aaron Rodgers has been a dog twice this year. He won both those games outright. San Francisco starting to see little kinks in the armor. We saw Garoppolo fall apart in that Thursday night or Monday night game a couple of weeks ago against Seattle. This past week, they had to come from behind, had a miracle win and a virtually miracle cover on the last play of the game after a fumble with 4 seconds to go from the 4-yard line.
Right, they've gotten lucky in that aspect. For a push, even. It wasn't even a win. Well, if you had them at 10. If you had them at 10.5.
Out here, as a matter of fact, out here, the line had moved to 9.5 at Caesars on Saturday afternoon, and on Sunday there was plenty of 9.5s and even 9. So if you had waited, you could have come out with the win on the Niners. I know on the websites I had a lot of 9.5s. And you know, the game is what you bet it at, Chelsea. You could have had the winner with Arizona if you'd gotten in earlier in the week. So the point was that San Francisco really wasn't dominating there, and Garoppolo has really shown some kinks in his armor. His quick release and the way he plays, I always thought I compared him actually to Namath, the way he released the ball. But he's looked a lot different the last 2 weeks to me. Maybe there's some malingering injury. He has something he's dealing with. But I was surprised. You know, San Francisco has only covered 9 times in their last 30 games when they're playing against teams with winning percentages. And certainly Green Bay at 9-2 is a winning percentage. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, Green Bay is 11-5 against teams with winning records. So Aaron Rodgers seems to get his troops ready. This is a tough one to call as far as the point spread is concerned because San Francisco is at home, and I am expecting them to rise to the occasion against Green Bay of some sorts, at least to put together some kind of offense. And with the Packers offense, I think 47 is a number that we're going to play over on this game Sunday night between Green Bay and San Francisco.
Here's some reasons I might like the Packers in this one. They're coming off a bye. The 49ers, as you mentioned, it's been a downward slump for them, and they're very banged up these days. I'm not sure if George Kittle's going to play, Matt Breida, Robbie Gould, their kicker, which if you watch that Seahawks game,
how big is that?
Makes a difference.
Yeah, and not only that, but Green Bay is
practice this week.
Green Bay is 6-2-1 at San Francisco in their last 9 trips there. And what was the last part, Chelsea? I'm sorry, I missed it.
D Ford, their pass rusher for the 49ers. He's also questionable as well.
Yeah, it's, this time of the year, the attrition really starts to pile up, and this is where the depth charts really come into play. This is going to be a great one to see. I think there's going to be plenty of scoring.
Right. That Packers defense is allowing 6 yards per play, which is not good. And as we mentioned, the 49ers are a little banged up, and they had their bye week in week 4, which is, right now, it's not looking like a great place in the schedule for that bye week. Yeah. Let's talk about some NBA games. Spurs-Sixers. Sixers favored in this one, -8. The total is 224. The Spurs are 5-10 on the year and a dismal 3-12 against the spread. Meanwhile, Philly is 9-5 overall, 6-7-1 against the number, but they haven't covered in 5 of their last 6. So what's the play on this one?
Well, you look at this game in San Antonio, you keep wondering, when are they going to get there? When are they going to make it? When are they going to cover a point spread? They've only covered 3 of 15, like you mentioned, to open the segment, and that's incredibly horrid. They've lost their last 7 games straight up, and they haven't managed to cover but 1 time. If you do the history of this contest, even when they were good, when San Antonio was good and Philadelphia, who's emerged in the last few seasons, wasn't the most stellar of teams, they were only 6-13 against the spread in their last 19 times they went to Philadelphia. They don't actually consider that the city of brotherly love when they get there, I'll tell you that. But the 76ers are not such a great play as it is. They are 5-0 at home straight up. So no question they've got a big advantage when they're playing on their own floor, but the odds makers do accommodate for that, and they do make up for it. Chelsea, they've only covered 2 of those 5 games. And as a matter of fact, they are so inconsistent. I don't know if they get so proud of themselves when they after a win or after a loss, but they are 0-4-1 after a straight-up win with a cover. So it's like a team that gets satisfied with themselves one night, and then the next night they just go through the motions. This Philadelphia team certainly has so much more talent, even with a number of the players getting workload management reliefs and some of the injuries that they've had. It just looks like the Spurs are in the doldrums, and I don't see them getting out of it very soon. If I was to play this Chelsea, I would lay the points, and I'm not a guy that plays that many favorites, but I would lay the points with Philadelphia over this dismal Spurs team, which is, again, taking it on the chin on the road.
All right, let's move on to the Rockets and the Clippers. The Clippers in that big game last night against the Celtics, where we saw Kawhi Leonard and Paul George playing together for some good news for the Clippers. They didn't cover, I will say, if you took the Celtics. You won that bet, but the Clippers won in overtime.
That's the day to life.
So that was a fun one.
Yeah, and Houston's coming off a loss themselves. They're at 11-4, 7-8 on the season, but they are 10-2 against the Pacific. And you know, Chelsea, this is going to be a great matchup between 2 great players on both sides. We've got Paul George and, of course, Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers, and Russell Westbrook, who's been a triple-double machine in the past, and of course, James Harden, the unstoppable James Harden, who was held to 27 points last night as the Denver, our winning play in NBA basketball, got the win over Houston. This is going to be a great matchup with 2 teams that just love to run the floor and put points on the board. I don't see how you stop either Harden or Westbrook, and I don't see how you stop Leonard or George on the other side. I see this game flying over the total without it even being close, and I think you gave me a total of 229, was it, Chelsea, or 227 in around there?
229.
Yeah, I think the winner's going to score 120 points at least. So I really think this game goes over the total easily. The Clippers have played well. Some people are a little disappointed with them at 10-5. They're only 8-7 against the number. They're 4-9 against the points after a win, and they are 6-2 against the points at home. They played a majority of their games at home so far. And this is going to be a great matchup with a lot of great offensive play. And I'm looking forward to watching this one myself.
Right. If you could say any team in the league has great defenders, though, it will be the Clippers with Pat Beverly and Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They're all great defenders. But the problem is Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Everyone knows that they're good, and they still can't find ways to stop them.
No, absolutely. And there's no question the Clippers have a better defense here, and they have better defensive players. But, you know, once the tempo of this game gets to where I anticipate it's going to be, with Russell Westbrook running the floor, with James Harden doing a step back, and those guys are going to meet the challenge offensively as well. I see it more of an offensive battle than a defensive battle for sure.
All right, let's move on to a little college basketball. This is a good matchup. Houston at number 11. Oregon, the Ducks are favoring this one at -8.5. The total is 138. Oregon is 4-0, including a big win over Memphis with James Wiseman, who has been the soap opera of the NCAA. So Oregon is one of those teams on the rise. A lot of the pundits like them to be a factor when it comes to March. Who do you like in this matchup in particular?
Well, you know, there's, like I said, there's a great storyline here. Houston has come a long way in most recent seasons. Chelsea, in their last 5 years since joining the AAC, they started 4-14. As you remember, Connecticut would dominate that conference. Then they've gone to 12-6, 12-6, 14-4. Last year, 16-2. but they lost their top 3 guards to the NBA in the draft in the offseason. But this Oregon team, they're a juggernaut, 14-2 against the points in their last 16 and overall, 7-1 at home. They're 4-0 this season. Like you said, Chelsea ranked number 11 in the nation. And that's good reason. They did beat this Memphis team when they had Wiseman. And Memphis is ranked number 18. Wiseman's going to be out, like you said. But they beat him easily. They beat him 82-74. And they have one of the most impressive players in the country. Once again, another Las Vegas transfer. Or they had Brooks, Dylan Brooks, who's left for the NBA. But Shakar Judson transferred from UNLV. He was a junior college player of the year 2 years ago. UNLV had him last year, and he had a plethora of injuries, so he didn't get much playing time. But like they got Bol from Las Vegas, it seems to have a little pipeline from Nevada up to Eugene. And he is I saw him the other night, Chelsea, and this kid can play basketball. He's a very impactful player. But, you know, how Houston's going to respond, I don't know if they can repeat and have the kind of season they had last year. They did lose the one game already this season to BYU. They lost 72-70. So the Cougars, they may be able to play close in this one. I would have more apt to want to take Houston than lay the points with Oregon.
So you like Houston or Oregon?
I would take Houston with the points if I was forced to play this right now, without question. They're an up-and-coming school. The favorite always has a little bit more pressure on them, though they are at home where they played so well. And I just like the points in this situation.
All right. Thanks again, Chip, for all of your knowledge and picks. We're back after the break with more picks and parlays.
Now, to learn more, 800-485-6003, 800-485-6003, 800-485-6003. Call right now. That number is 800-485-6003.
And we're back on Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You caught me messing with my hair. I think the average female spends probably 2 years of her life fixing her hair. Stats I just made up. Back to the betting aspect of the show, which is what we're all here for. Right now, we're diving into some college football rapid fire, where we go down the line with a bunch of college football games from the weekend, and we give you our picks. We've got a couple of cappers joining us. We've got Craig Trapp, and who else do we have? Is it Tony T? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I was right. I couldn't see him.
Good guess.
All right, guys, we've got some great games this weekend, so let's jump right in, starting with one of the big ones. Number 9, Penn State at number 2, Ohio State. Ohio State favored minus 18.5 in this one. Total is 57.5. And Ohio State has been favored by some big numbers this season, but they've been really good for bettors. They're 8-2 against the number. Penn State 9-1, but just 5-5 against the spread. Tony T, let's start with you. Who do you think wins? Who do you think covers? Or do you like the total in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and lay the points here with Ohio State. Concerned here about Penn State's defense. After that loss to Minnesota, they allowed Indiana to pull up 460 yards, 371 passing. They converted 7 of 13 on third down. And as you said, Ohio State continues to roll past teams. This is a game they've circled. Issue here is with Penn State quarterback Sean Clifford has not been very accurate. Past 2 games, 51% completions, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. I'm going to go ahead and lay the points with Ohio State.
Right, and since this college football playoff, a lot of these teams are trying to make some statement wins, and that's what Ohio State is trying to do to stay in the top 4. Not to mention, they've got their defensive end, Chase Young, back for this one, which spells trouble for Penn State and their offense, I would assume. Craig, what do you think?
I agree with Tony. Ohio State's been really good against the number, really good against these big numbers, surprisingly. But I like the over here. I just think this Penn State team has not been good the last few weeks against Minnesota or Indiana. I think Ohio State puts up 40+ in this one, so a total of 57.5. Easy over here. Take the over 57.5 and a lopsided win by the Ohio State University.
All right, moving on to Illinois, Iowa. Iowa is favored in this one at minus 15.5. Total is 46.5. Iowa is coming off that win over Minnesota, and Illinois, they've been really good against the number. They've won outright over Michigan State as a 15.5-point dog, and Wisconsin as a dog at plus 29.5. So they've been good against the number as an underdog. Tony T, who do you like in this one?
Well, Chelsea, I like this game a lot. It's my best play of the day. Find it right now at picksandparlays.net.
All right, Craig, who you got? What are you taking? What's the play?
Well, Iowa's offense is anemic. Last week, big win, but it was really about their defense again. Once again, it's been about their defense all year long. Very, very good defense. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Thus, the total is 46.5. But I'm going to lean towards the visiting Illinois team here. I think Illinois has been very good against the number. I think it continues. I think this is well within 13, 14 points. So as long as this number doesn't fall below 14 or below, I'm going to take Illinois this week.
All right, next up we've got Oklahoma State, the number 22 team in the land, at West Virginia. The total in this one is 55. Oklahoma State is favored at minus 5.5. They're 7-3 on the year, 8-2 against the spread. West Virginia 4-6, 4-6 against the number, and coming off that big win over Kansas State, 24-20 as a 14-point underdog. Tony T, what's the play?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take West Virginia plus 7.5. We've seen this number come down from an opener of 7.5. Jarrett Doge, a junior transfer from Bowling Green, took over last week for Austin Kendall, who's been ineffective, and he helped the team in that upset win against Kansas State, completing 66% of his passes. At Bowling Green in 2 years, 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. So Doge is an experienced player under center. Of course, Oklahoma State dealing with injury here to their quarterback, Spencer Sanders, with that hand injury, but more importantly, I don't like the Cowboys' defense on the road, allowing 479 yards, 321 passing. I'm going to take the points over West Virginia.
All right, Craig, who you got?
Well, the problem, I think, for West Virginia is other than that game really against Baylor, I just thought, how are they going to be able to stop the run? And that Oklahoma State can really run the ball. I like Oklahoma State -5.5 here. I do think this is right near that number. And like Tony said, this number is anywhere from 7.5 to 5.5. So definitely shop it around if you're out there. Oklahoma State is 4-1 against the spread on the road, and West Virginia just 1-3 against the spread at home. So the stats bear it, and I think the running game for Oklahoma State is the difference here.
Moving right along to Boston College at number 16 at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored -20 in this one. The total is 64. Boston College 5-5 on the year, 6-4 against the spread. Notre Dame 8-2 and 6-4 against the number. Boston College coming off a loss to Florida State. Meanwhile, Notre Dame has won 3 in a row with wins over Navy, Duke, and Virginia Tech. Tony T, do you think Notre Dame covers this big number?
I don't think they do. I'm going to go ahead and take BC here plus the 20. Of course, we've got Dennis Grosel, the quarterback now for BC. Anthony Brown out for the season. But I like their running back in A.J. Dillon. He's an NFL prospect who's averaging over 5 yards a carry, 1,451 yards. Fighting Irish had recent struggles at home to Virginia Tech and USC. And, Ian Book has got some accuracy issues. He's completed 56% or fewer in 4 of his past 5 games, and I believe BC generates just enough points here to cover this number. I'm going to go ahead and take the points here with Boston College.
All right, Craig, what do you think?
Well, I like this one a lot. My top play of the week in college football, week 13, so make sure you go over to picksandparlays.net and pick it up this weekend.
Next up, we've got number 19 at Texas at number 13, Baylor. Baylor is favoring this one -6. The total is 59. And Baylor, man, they've got to be heartbroken coming off that big loss to Oklahoma in which they blew a 25-point lead. That's a tough one to come off of. Tony T, do you think Baylor bounces back here, or do you think it's all Texas, or do you like a total in this one?
Well, I like Texas here at plus the 6. And you said it, yeah, it's a tough way to lose last week. But again, Texas doesn't have to win to get the money. If they can lose by 4 or 3, you get the money there. Baylor's been in a lot of close games. But the issue there with Baylor did give up a lot of yardage to the Sooners offense last week. And, Texas does have Texas can move the football. And, of course, we saw, the Bears needed, overtime to beat TCU. They got past West Virginia by only 3 points. Overtime 3-point wins at home to Texas Tech and by 2 to Iowa State. You can see there that their games are all within 3 to 4 points. So I'm going to go ahead and take the points here with Texas plus 6.
All right, Craig, you like the Longhorns, or you like the Bears, or do you like the total?
I like Texas a lot here. I think Texas getting 6 points, I think they went outright. I mean, we saw this last week where teams that go 8-0 or more come back the next week and very rarely cover. We saw that. We bet against Penn State last week. Indiana nearly pulled the upset. I think Texas actually gets it done this week. But let's take the points just in case. Texas gives Baylor their second loss, I think. But at the worst, we get the cover here.
All right, next up we've got Temple at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is favored -10 in this one. The total is 45 and a hook. Temple is 7-3, 6-4 against the number. Cincinnati is 9-1, 6-4 against the spread. There is some rain and some snow calling in the forecast for this one, possibly. The forecast is for 30 degrees, so it might be a little chilly up there in Cincinnati with the skyline chilly. Might need a bowl after the game. Tony T, does that have any effect on your prediction, or what's your prediction for this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the points here with Temple. It's a lot of points. So Temple has shown a lot of grit on the field this season. They've got outright wins as underdogs in Tulane and Memphis, and they do well. The team that is built on defense. And my concern here is with quarterback sophomore Desmond Ridder completing only 51% of his passes past 3 games. Bearcats have failed to cover 3 of their past 4, only one coming against a really bad UConn team. But I'm going to go ahead and look here for the Owls to cover this one against the Cincinnati Bearcats.
All right, Craig, Cincinnati. I know you're from there. So do you like them in this one?
Well, I'm in Vegas this week, so I will be betting Cincinnati here. Cincinnati -10 is going to be my play. 4-1 against the spread at home this year, Cincinnati is. And Temple's not been good on the road, conversely, against the spread. So I think those trends continue this week. I think in a cold atmosphere, the Cincinnati's run game is the difference, and the very solid defense. I think the Bearcats finally show up after the last 4 or 5 weeks, just been kind of going through the motions a little bit. I like Cincinnati here in this one.
All right, last up and not least, we've got Utah, Arizona. Utah is minus 23 in this one. The total is 57.5, and Utah is one of those teams that is one of those teams that we talked about before the season. Craig really liked him to win the whole thing as a value play, win the futures. Bets were all we could talk about in the doldrums of summer. So, Craig, I'm going to have you start off on this one. Utah, do you like them laying all of those points, minus 23 in this one against Arizona?
Well, I liked Utah back in the summer. The reason why, this defense and their running game and experience at quarterback. And, I think all those things still exist. Yes, they had that really tough loss at USC on a midweek game where USC's quarterback goes down in the first possession and then just fell apart in the secondary. Since then, Utah has been very good. They're 7-3 against the spread on the year. I just think Utah is just way too much for an Arizona team that's 2-7 against the spread this season. I don't know how you can put your money on Utah or on Arizona and have any faith. I'm going to lay the really big number in Utah here on the road. I think Utah gets it done and in impressive fashion and keeps their playoff hopes alive with, of course, a big Pac-12 championship showdown on the way with Oregon.
Right, the Pac-12 definitely needs some help, and they need to be impressively winning some of these games if they want to be a factor in the college football playoff top 4 come the end of the season. So, Tony T, let's talk about just this single game, Utah-Arizona. Who do you like? What's the play in this one?
Yeah, I think you said it there, the need for style points from Utah. That's why I'm going to go ahead and lay the 22.5 with the Utes here. They got to get those style points. And, if they win out, they'll be a one-loss team. But, of course, they're in the conversation. And, the Pac-12, they always feel there's a bias for the SEC and the teams back east. But it's going to be tough to get in there with one loss, especially when you're looking at teams like, in the SEC, LSU, Georgia, Alabama's in the mix, Clemson's in the mix, Ohio State's in the mix. That one-loss team is going to be in a battle just to get in. And Utes, they're going to need to put up as many points as possible. And this is a team that can do it because Arizona defensively has been terrible. And they've allowed 41 points or greater in 4 of their past 5. Remember Hawaii lit them up in that first game of the year. Utes have covered 3 straight against the Wildcats. And looking at the Arizona defense, allowing over 500 yards, 324 passing, 72% completion rate against this Wildcats defense. And I just cannot support this Arizona team, especially in a situation where Utah's looking for the style points here. And as Craig talked about, their defense playing well. Their quarterback's not injured this year like last year. Remember, they had that slip down at the end against Washington because their quarterback got hurt. They can keep them upright and healthy. They should have a good run into that Pac-12 title game against Oregon. Looks like a showdown there. But I'm going to go ahead and lay the points here with Utah at minus 22.5.
All right, Tony, I'm going to keep you on just a little bit longer. We've got about a minute left. The college football playoff, how does it affect betting? Because as we've mentioned, style points are needed for some of these teams. How do you take that into account when you're betting some of these teams that are competing for those top spots?
I especially look at the one-loss teams. They're the teams that are really going to have to make a strong case at the end. Like we talked about, we could have 3 undefeated teams, Ohio State, Clemson, and we could also have LSU in there. So that means the rest of these teams are one loss, and they're going to have to really make a strong case for themselves, and it's going to mean big wins. So no doubt about that. This is one of those situations here, like looking at, we have 2 big favorites in the Pac-12, like Utah and Oregon. These are teams that are probably going to pile up some points this week.
Right. Should be fun to watch down the stretch and bet on the results. All right, we're back after the break on Picks and Parlays with a recap of all of today's picks.
Not too long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, didn't it? For a vacation or a new car. But today, withdrawing your own cash has become risky. Pat Boone here for Swiss America. According to The Secret War, a new Swiss America white paper, I learned that all banks are now required to spy on you and me for the government, and then report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. You must read The Secret War. It's free. Truth is, I believe the government's new war against cash is really a war against us all. But the secret is now out. So please, get and read The Secret War.
Pick up your phone and call right now. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. Once again, that's 800-932-5517.
We paid less for our Craftmatic today than we did 20 years ago.
If you're still searching for the perfect solution to a good night's sleep, call now for prices and free information on today's Craftmatic adjustable beds. And then decide when you see how little they cost. Rated #1 by consumers nationwide on consumeraffairs.com. Craftmatic beds come in all mattress types, including cool gel memory foam for up to 50% less than today's leading memory foam brand. Enjoy temporary relief of low back pain, poor circulation, nighttime heartburn, mild arthritis. You'll sleep better in a Craftmatic adjustable bed. So if you're still searching for the perfect solution to a good night's sleep, call now for prices and information. And then decide when you see how little they cost. Discover Craftmatic for less, up to 50% less than today's leading memory foam brand.
Call 1-800-371-9608. That's 1-800-371-9608. Call 1-800-371-9608. Call now.
This is an urgent health notice for all residents suffering from back, neck, knee, and wrist pain. You may qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you, but the deadline is fast approaching. Simply call the Health Alert Hotline now.
You heard right. You may qualify for a pain-relieving back, neck, knee, or wrist brace. These items may even be covered by Medicare or your private insurance. The Health Alert Hotline is your brace company. These specialized braces have been tested for pain relief. Call us toll-free right now to determine your eligibility and to learn how to use your private insurance or Medicare to minimize your out-of-pocket cost. Don't wait. If the deadline passes, you may lose your opportunity to get a pain-relieving back, neck, knee, or wrist brace at little or no cost to you.
800-430-9571. 800-430-9571. 800-430-9571. That's 800-430-9571.
Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me every day on Twitter. My handle, just my name, @Chelsa Messinger. We had a jam-packed show on this Thursday afternoon full of all kinds of goodness for sports betting. If you haven't been paying attention, no worries. We've got you covered. We're about to recap all of our picks from today's show, starting with Premier League Soccer from Nick Geber. Newcastle, Aston Villa, taking the draw on that one, plus 240. Tottenham, West Ham, take the draw on that one, plus 319. And Chelsea at Man City, take Chelsea, plus 534 for the big upset pick of the day. Chip Chirimbes gave us some NFL picks, Packers 49ers in that Sunday night game, taking the over to hit 47.5. An NBA pick or two sprinkled in. Spurs 76ers, taking the Sixers at -8. Rockets Clippers take the over 227 to hit. And then finally, a little sprinkle of college basketball. Houston at number 11, Oregon, taking Houston to cover plus 8.5. Moving on to our rapid fire picks in college football. Penn State, Ohio State from Craig Trapp. He says take the over at 57.5. Temple at Cincinnati. Take Cincinnati -10. And then Utah, Arizona. He likes the Utes in this one, -23. Tony T gave us some rapid fire college football picks as well. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. He likes West Virginia to cover plus 5.5. Boston College, Notre Dame, taking Boston College in the points, plus 20. Texas at Baylor, taking Texas plus 6. To round off some underdog picks. Well, I guess they're not underdogs. We just need them to cover. That's how it goes. Thanks for joining us. A lot of great stuff today. We're back tomorrow. As always, bet, win, repeat. It's Picks and Parlays. See you guys tomorrow.